So acceptance is really the being willing to experience the full range of your internal experiences. So I often will use the word, and you'll see I'll use them interchangeably today, acceptance and willingness. Same thing. Sometimes I'll use willingness instead of acceptance because acceptance has at times a lot of negative connotations. Like clients will come in the door and think, if I'm like talking about this process of acceptance, are you just telling me to like give up? Are you just saying like, this is it? Like, I just have to like, just do it and just like suffer. And I want to be really clear. I'll tell clients that, hey, when I'm talking about acceptance, if there's something that you could change, like, if someone's in a, relationship where there's domestic violence, I'm clearly not going to encourage acceptance. All right. I'm going to try to help them change their behaviors, right? What I might encourage them to do, it's like, okay, can you accept the guilt or the shame that you might have for being in the situation, or the guilt of leaving your partner, and like make room for that experience because you don't have that much control that's there, and like still start to help you change behaviors. The experiential avoidance and the opposite control agenda, right, is what we say kind of, again, really narrows their behaviors. And so acceptance is really what's going to help them kind of open up a little bit. Acceptance would really be, again, when we're thinking about that creative hopelessness that I talked about, the pushing the paper, those different questions that we ask, right? When I say like, are you open to another way, right? Like this is really the stance I'm talking about. Are you open to like making room for this internal discomfort in order to live your life in a way that matters to you, right? In the service of your values. So that's what I would say. So you could use whatever word works best for your clients. So some different ways to do this. And so I thought we'd had cameras, so this might be a little bit unique. But I guess I'm going to have you guys just put in the chat once you're done. So one really cool way to show acceptance and experientially, you can really say to your client, okay, I want you to imagine that you're a great sculptor, right? And that you can shape your body in the way that anyone could understand what you're trying to convey, right? So this kind of difficulty that you have with social anxiety, right? This challenge that you're having, I want you to really show me with your body. And so again, I want you guys to think about whether it was something that you wrote down the thought in the diffusion exercise or something you thought about earlier on. Like think about something that you really struggle with, something that's challenging for you. And if you can, I know we can't see each other, but we're going to type it in the chat after we're done. I want you, if you can just mold your body to show me you at your worst when you're dealing with this challenging issue, right? So no words at this point. We're just gonna, if you could show me with your body, right? And I'll ask clients to show me whatever stance they shape their body into. Gotcha. Okay. So kind of really feeling that lived sense of what that feels like in your body. And I can see that. Now you can let go of that posture, whatever it was, but maybe just for our purposes, make note of anything that, like how you would describe it. Then now I want you to show me, right, what is your best when you're dealing with the same challenging issue, right? The issue hasn't changed. You have just changed, right? What is the best? How would you show me with your body? How could I see that? And again, for the purposes of this, if you guys on your own could do that, right, kind of see what that's like, and then see, like, notice if there's any difference, right? Is there any difference between one or the other? Right. So if you guys could just, I think Trishelle already put like worst posture is shrunken, best posture is upright. Love it. Anyone else can just kind of notice or describe the difference. Worst, lying on the couch with Netflix, best walking the dogs. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Anyone else can share what their posture was like in one or the worst, turn back to the problem. Ooh, best facing and sitting upright. Okay. Slump, and then tall and confident. Got it? Heavy versus light. Turned away and crouched over, so I'm less visible, then turned toward upright with eye contact. Yes. Okay. And as you guys are seeing each other's responses, I want you to notice like some themes, right? There's some common themes here. And I've done this exercise myself. as a participant of trainings. I've done this many times with clients, and I will say there's a lot of overlap, right? Like a lot of clients will, and I have like shown like just being really, my worst being really kind of turned in, shoulders slumped, maybe being really rigid. Whereas at my best, it's more of like just kind of almost like making room and space, trying to just like have an open gaze too, if that makes sense. Once you do this with clients, what's really great, right? Once you've like, okay, your client has shown you what their body is, throughout your work together, you can reference this again, right? You can say like, it kind of seems like, wait, are you like this or like this with this issue? Right? I kind of get the sense that you're like this, right? And they're intuitively get it because you've already done this exercise with them, right? Another really fun way to show this process is the Chinese finger trap. So I've linked 2 different type of YouTube videos for you guys also to see different kind of styles and the way you do this metaphor. One is going to be very similar to how I do it, and one is it's a little bit different, different type of how the therapist does it with their client. Just wanted you to have different ranges, different ways to kind of see this. But if you guys don't know, I was going to say, a Chinese finger trap is this fun little kind of game or whatnot. These are super readily available. I actually have a bag in my office because I do this one often with clients. And so I'll say like, okay, and like the way I do it, it's like I give one to clients and I'm doing one as well at the same time. It's like, okay, so like, let's imagine, right? So like this thing that you struggle with, right? This social anxiety, I'm just going to stick to that for now. Like, okay, imagine putting your hands in it. So like, imagine, right? Like, I want you to try to get out of this, right? And of course, like the first thing we try to do is like try to pull out. If anyone's never played this, the more you try to pull out this, you get stuck. You literally can't like move your fingers out. But it kind of seems like this is what happens when you're dealing with your social anxiety. You're not willing to have it. You try to do all these things to avoid. You drink excessively, you don't go to the happy hour, you don't go to the event that your friend invited you, even family events, right? You try to do all these things not to have it, right? And what I'm asking you to do, I know it seems so counterintuitive, but I want you to see, could you actually like lean into this experience of social anxiety and notice what happens to your fingers, right? Like there's more space when you lean in and you can slowly get out. Right? So can we have this framework of you, I know, doing this thing that seems so counterintuitive, but could you actually try to lean into this and see if that could work? And what I also like to, like, I will literally just give this to the client to take home. They're, again, not expensive. You can, and it's like a great metaphor and something that they can refer to throughout kind of their week or whatnot, to really help them start to practice this and have this understanding that what I'm asking them to do is very counterintuitive, but maybe, right, could we lean into that? Yeah, this is a really fun one. And I will say this one, clients really respond to this, right? And I know I'm giving you a range of different exercises, but honestly, the exercises that I'm giving you, because there's so many different types of tools and tips in ACT, I'm giving you tools that I've actually, like I use with my clients and that I find works really well, that for the most part, clients will respond to, right? And then with willingness, these are just, again, different questions that you could ask, right? These clearly are less experiential, but you could just ask in your work as you're processing something. But really the most common one that I'll say, like, can you make room for these thoughts and feelings? Like, are you willing to have this experience fully in order to do something that matters to you? Because it seems like social connections are important to you and that's something you would like to have again. So could you make room for these uncomfortable and painful thoughts and feelings in order to move towards what really matters to you, right? You can also kind of just prompt, like, can you just notice this experience with some curiosity and kindness, right? And something that I will say with this that kind of brings to mind compassion, right? Compassion is not a process in ACT, but it is something that I would honestly say is just weaved in the therapeutic stance. We are constantly having this stance of compassion towards our clients, and even a lot of our compassion-focused exercises work really well with the ACT model. And so again, even like leaning into that kind of compassionate stance with this uncomfortable distress. Something with acceptance that I find is really important to keep in mind. It's really understanding whenever I do an acceptance exercise, or even when I ask them, like, can you really make room for this discomfort? I really will prompt it with, like, I know what I'm asking you to do is really, really hard. And I don't want to in any way minimize that or invalidate that. Like, and I get that this experience of not feeling good enough and these thoughts that show up, when they show up, it sucker punches you, right? So I absolutely get that what I'm asking you to do here and to do like in your life is really, really hard. And I don't want you to think that I don't get how painful your experience is, right? I need to balance, right? Not invalidating my client's experience, right? If I'm asking you to accept something, I need you to understand that I know how hard it is to accept, right? Humans try to avoid. And of course, if you're telling me something really difficult, this has caused you distress for X amount of time. With acceptance, I always like to keep in mind as well, it's, I mean, with all the processes, but specifically with acceptance, this isn't like a one and done, right? I think early on when I started practicing ACT, and even like when I would do like the creative hopelessness or emotional agenda, and like the client got it, right? Oh my gosh, they get it. They see it, right? They had this felt sense. And then like 3 sessions later, it's like, okay, yeah, but Diana, how do I not have this feeling? Oh, you didn't get it. And again, they did get it in that moment. But this comes back to, right, avoidance is so prevalent in our society and it's so reinforcing. So this is going to be an ongoing process that you're going to have to continue to work on, that I have to continue to work on, right? And, a note on that, right? All of these processes that I'm talking about, I almost feel like it's impossible to be an ACT therapist and not practice ACT in your life. I think like you just inevitably start to practice like these stance and these tools. And that's just what starts to happen. So for sure, it's something that of course we all at times will default to. And that's okay. It's just when we notice that, okay, here we go again. I really didn't want to have this experience. And now it's here again. Right. So just kind of make room for that. This is a process that will really kind of be something you're going to work ongoing. With any tool that I talk about today as well, I also wanted to just make a note that clearly using your clinical judgment is so, so important. I didn't mention this with diffusion, but I just want to kind of come back to it that I just recalled. Diffusion, there are some tools that maybe are a little bit sillier. So some classic tools when it comes to diffusion, it's like saying that thought, like singing that thought in the happy birthday tune. So I'm a crappy therapist, I'm a crappy therapist, I'm a crappy therapist, I'm right. And so again, and you would sing that and practice that, or saying it in a silly voice. I can't do impressions, so I'm not going to even try. And there's some that are clearly have a sillier element to it. Use your clinical judgment of your therapeutic relationship, right? Do you have a therapeutic relationship with the client that they could like handle this sillier intervention? Also knowing the timing of when you're using this. I might not use that in my first session, right? Because that might feel very invalidating, especially if they don't still understand this concept. It might feel like I'm invalidating their pain. And of course, making room for kind of assessing what you think would work best, right? Especially with some really painful, like if there's a history of trauma or something like that, you're going to tailor a tool that's going to work best for your client. And the last thing I think I'll say about acceptance is really noticing your own acceptance or willingness, right? With ACT, because ACT, like I said, is a very experiential process. I noticed I really had to lean into a lot of my own willingness. Like, oof, am I willing to do a new tool or new really experiential exercise, especially if it was the first time I was doing it? I don't know how it's going to land, right? I'm not an expert. And so I needed to access my own inner willingness. Like, could I make room for these uncomfortable thoughts and feelings and still show up in this session the way that felt the best for me? Because that was what was really important to me. So just kind of a couple of things to keep in mind.